Is there a trick to fast track new learning? Yes, there is. Start almost in the middle. Start almost in the middle. Not quite in the middle, but start with, for example, what I do now, because at LingQ we have what we call the mini stories, 60 stories with a lot of high frequency verbs, a lot of conjunctions, because, although, on the other hand, however. And I listen to these many, many times. Each story repeats the same vocabulary and the same structures about 4 or 5 times. And so I start right into everyday common. I got up, had a cup of coffee, went to the store, whatever it might be, went to work. It's real situations. It's not going through customs like they like to have in language learning, books. And you just start into it. You do a lot of listening and reading. You let the language come at you. Let the brain get a sense of the language. Listen and then read the same content. Look up the words. So I always start on an iPhone, iPad, computer, so I can quickly look up words, save them for review. And at first it's all noise. And eventually it becomes meaning because you're going over the same stuff over and over again. So that's, I would say, the initial 3 months to get a toehold in the language. And then you have to very quickly push yourself away from beginner content, learner, content, written for a language learner, and go after the real stuff, newspaper articles, Netflix movies, and there's all kinds of ways of doing that. But I think the key is to get a toehold in the language with lots of repetition and not worry too much about trying to memorize the grammar, because if you haven't had enough exposure to the language, enough experience with the language, the grammar explanations are difficult to understand, difficult to remember, and almost impossible to apply. You can't be thinking of them as you're trying to speak. You have to develop habits. And that's best done through this massive exposure, initially with a lot of repetition, and then eventually, as soon as possible, moving on to things of genuine interest. When we start in a new language, typically we're motivated. Now, some people start and quit right away. So those people were never really very motivated. But if you are motivated, the first sort of 2-3 months is sort of the honeymoon period. It's a steep climb because at first everything is noise. You know nothing. But in a very short period of time, you actually know something. You understand something. You can say something. There's a great sense of achievement. And of course, you're dealing with typically a lot of high frequency words. So they come up all the time in the content you're listening to, and you're listening to it more than once, hopefully. And so you have a sense of achievement. But then you reach a point where, frequency drops off very quickly in any language. So very soon you're trying to learn words that don't show up that often. So that becomes a little frustrating. And so you go through, so you've gone up the steep part of the hockey stick, and now you're on the shaft of the hockey stick, and it looks like you're not getting anywhere. You just feel that you're forever facing more and more new words. You're listening again and again, you don't understand. You have the sense that you're not making progress, whereas in the first 3 months, you're going from zero, climbing a steep hill, that hockey stick, but you have a sense that you're doing something. Whereas the long shaft of the hockey stick is the difficult part, and you just have to stay the course. And hopefully you can move to content of interest to you, which in my case is history. And so you're not sort of deliberately trying to learn the language. You are listening to and reading things of interest to you and learning these things and learning about these things, about the country, or maybe you're into Netflix or whatever, songs, anime for Japanese. And so you're enjoying all of that, and without realizing it, you're learning the language. But that's how you sort of continue on that path, that long, long path, which is the longer sort of shaft of the hockey stick.
Get smarter faster with new videos every week from the world's biggest thinkers.